Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Thursday edition Plant of the Week. And the really amazing thing about the Plant of the Week this week is actually the Plant of the Month here. So Plant of the Month always means there's a deal, which is really exciting. So it's a buy two, get one free. My name is Sarah Smith. I'm a horticulturist here at Rogers Gardens, and let's get into it. I always have the really exciting job of introducing the Plant of the Week here, and it's always the thing that's like the most beautiful, so it's really exciting to talk about. So I feel very lucky in that regard. And the Plant of the Week and the Plant of the Month right now is not the Japanese anemone, sorry, the Italian anemone. There are Japanese anemones as well, but these are the Italian ones. So these are the big, beautiful, really cool, gorgeous flowers. These have become really, really popular in like floral arrangements and stuff, especially in a lot of weddings. I'm seeing them, particularly the white one. Unfortunately, I don't have a white one flowering, but I do have the tag. So if you see this, you'll recognize this. That beautiful white flower with the black center just really makes it really kind of an amazing flower for flower arranging, gorgeous in the garden. We have them planted here in a display, and they're just looking so beautiful. They're a little bit different than the traditional anemones that you see. So the Japanese anemones are the ones that are perennials, much smaller flower, foliage year round, good for shade. These come from a chrome, which is like a bulb. They're a funky, weird, ugly little bulb, really unusual looking. They don't look like a beautiful little tulip bulb that's very reminiscent of like a shallot. They're a wrinkly, little scabby looking, horrible thing. But they make the most beautiful flowers. And look at these colors. This one is just opening. And what's different about the Italian ones is these flowers are going to be much bigger. The stem is going to be much, much longer, and they produce more flowers than the typical ones that we're used to seeing. So this is a very common plant to see planted around in the beginning of spring. We sell the bulbs for them, but it's far too late for the bulbs at this point, but you can buy the nice started ones. And again, it's the deal with the buy two, get one free, which is really awesome because they look really great in mass plantings, and they're a beautiful cut flower, particularly these ones. So it's one that you want to make sure that you're continually cutting. So it's that deadheading game that I'm always telling you guys about. Make sure you're cutting the flowers when they're starting to go, bring them inside, but that'll keep them flowering. And what's really interesting about these ones is the flowers through the season start getting bigger and bigger and taller, which is really kind of cool. You can get up to like 20 flowers per plant, which is very unusual for an anemone, and that's because they're the Italian bred ones. So this one, for example, is starting to look a little spent. So this is one, by now I would have cut this one at home. I don't let them get like this in my house because I like to bring them inside. But it's looking a little spent. So what you would do is you would, let me grab my pruners real quick here. You would find the flower head. You would go down the stalk. So people often ask me how to deadhead, and I want to show you a good example, especially on this. So you get the stalk, you go all the way down to the ground on this one. You don't want to leave a little stubby mark. So you're going to cut it all the way down to the ground on a slight angle. And you're going to cut that off, and that's done. But with this one, for example, I would have taken this in the house, but you want to cut that all the way down to the very ground. You don't want to leave that little stubby nub there because that's just going to eventually rot away. So you're cutting that all the way down to the ground. But the beautiful thing about this is you can see on this one, there's already 2 buds coming up, so it's ready to make more. So you want to make sure you keep those cut so it keeps making more flowers. But the center of this is just like the most beautiful, velvety purple. It's just so fantastic. They're such beautiful flowers. So this one's going in my hat later today. But with these, they want to be planted in really fertile, well-draining soil, but they like a lot of fertilizer. They are like an annual plant. They're a bulb, but they have just a very specific not short season, but a very specific season, and then they die totally down to the ground. So you want to make sure that you're keeping it really, really fertilized, and you want to keep it in really nice, fertile soil. So the fertilizer I like using with this, and I know you're saying, Sarah, you like the ones that you don't have to mix with water, and lately that's all I've been talking about, right? But that's something that I like to do for my annual plants, is the kind you mix with water. So this is the Flower and Bloom. This is the 42626. I am really greedy, and I want as many flowers as I could possibly get on these. Even though this is a bulb, this is one that I find doesn't really come back very well here in Southern California. We're really, really lucky with dahlias. Dahlias just naturalize so well, and they just keep coming back and coming back and coming back. I've had a few of them come back when I plant them from bulb. When I plant them like this from starts, I never really have any luck with them coming back. So when they're done, I will cut them down, and that's usually going to be around June, July is when they're going to be finishing up. I keep the foliage above ground as long as I possibly can, and then I cut them down, completely down to the soil. But with these ones, I don't even know if I would necessarily do that. If it was a bulb, I would, but with starts like this, I don't really find that they're necessarily going to come back. I probably would just pull up the whole entire thing personally. I think that's just totally up to you. I'm curious though, for all of you out there, who has had a Japanese anemone an Italian anemone. Why do I keep saying the Japanese anemone? That's a different one. Those ones do come back year after year. We do have those right now in the shade house. But have you ever had the bulb type anemones come back for you? And if they did, was it just foliage or did you get flowers? So when we get to the end and I'm answering questions, I'm curious if we get any answers about that, because I have had the foliage come back, but I've never had them reflower for me. I live pretty coastal here in Southern California, but they're just not one that tends to come back. I never dig up bulbs for any of my plants and overwinter them and put them back in the ground. Partially, we don't get any freezes. We don't get a lot of crazy heavy rain, so I don't really worry about them rotting out necessarily, but it's just a lot of work to dig them out, remember where they're at, put them in storage. It's really much more of like an East Coast thing where they do a lot of that, but around here we typically don't do a lot of that. And things like our dahlias do just fine, begonias, those kind of things that really come back well for us year after year and get better and better year after year. I don't dig those out of the ground. I just let them stay in the ground and they do just fine and they come back fantastically. So I am curious if we get any answers about that. But yeah, so these Italian anemones, so beautiful, so great, do well in containers too. So you want to make sure that you have good drainage, and again, you want to make sure that they're really fertile soil, so you want to make sure you're fertilizing really, really well. The down-to-earth powder fertilizer we have is great when you're starting them from bulbs. Again, you are too late for that, but store that away in your mind if you're going to do them from bulbs next year. That putting that in the ground to start is really good, but once we're at this stage, like we are here now, you want to use this kind of fertilizer on them. They want to make sure that you have them in a good amount of sun. So they need at least 6 hours, at the very least, more if you can do it. If you're a little bit more inland, let's say you're like Irvine or Tustin, or maybe even like Temecula or someplace, some afternoon shade for them would be really helpful. So that 6 hours would be totally fine as long as that 6 hours is morning to the afternoon. But that's pretty much it. They are really beautiful mass plantings. I think just one by itself is gorgeous, absolutely, but they look much better when you have lots of them together. I feel that that's very true to all bulbs, I think, with the exception of the dahlias, which get gargantuan. Having lots of them together is really nice. So I think about 9 inches on center is a really good point for planting them to make sure that it's really full and really beautiful. I always think dahlias look really nice, or not dahlias, but bulbs look really nice in kind of like swaths almost. So I think it's really nice to like do ribbons of them and kind of tuck them amongst your other perennial plants. So it's a really great underplanting. So in my area where I have my ornamental perennial stuff, I just kind of tuck them into any empty spaces that I have. And when they come up, it's just absolutely beautiful. So such great colors. I particularly like this one. I had to pull this one. Look how pretty that is. I only have some with the small flowers because they're just starting, but this is the Bordeaux and it's just such a great, beautiful color. They're so, so pretty. And they do really good, like I said, in pots and in different plantings. So you can put a bunch in one pot, but mixed up with some other things. So if you like to do that, like door front planting where you do something that's very seasonal, these work really well to give you that kind of beautiful height. This would definitely be in that equation of our thriller and our filler and our spiller that we do here at Rogers Gardens. This is your thriller for sure, because the color is just so, so pretty. And the foliage is really nice too. It's that really nice lush green, kind of curly, beautiful. So even that works a little bit as your filler, but this is definitely a really great one for that. And fantastic for cut. They last forever, so this will stay in my hat for a pretty long time. And even though this flower is pretty spent, this will probably stay in my hat pretty well without getting too wilty. They do like some water though, so I probably won't make it all the way to the end of the day. But if I kept this in a vase, absolutely, for a couple of days. These are very long lasting in the house in water, which is really nice. So I love that people are getting more into growing flowers for outside, but also bringing inside. That's really become a really kind of nice trend that we're getting into a little bit more. Same thing like with our poppies we had those Icelandic, but they were the Italian bred Icelandic poppies. So just like these are the Italian bred anemones. I didn't say Japanese this time. Those were really, really great cut flowers too. So we're getting a lot more things that are really meant for being outside, but also bringing inside. So it's really nice because I hate deadheading things and just throwing stuff away. It's nice to deadhead just a little bit early and bring it inside so I can enjoy it a little bit longer. But yeah, these ones are really good for that. And these stems are going to get longer and longer, and the flowers are going to get bigger and bigger, which is really amazing. So that being said, we are live, and hopefully we have some questions. Maybe anybody who has some experience with having their anemones come back, this type of anemone coming back, because like I said, I've had the foliage come back on mine when I planted them from chromes, but I've never had them reflower for me. Really the only things that I've had luck with reflowering is my dahlias. My dahlias do great. They come back every single year, bigger and bigger and bigger and better every single year. Some of my daffodils and stuff will come back, but I do find that they almost get more greens and less flowers as they get a little bit older. Just because we're so mild, we have such mild weather, they don't have those extremes that they kind of need. So I'm curious if we have any answers about that. So do we have any questions, and do we have anybody with personal stories?
Yes. The first question is, how much watering do they require in a container?
Okay, yeah. So the bigger your container is, the better it's going to be. I always tell everybody this in the way of how you're going to water. The smaller containers are going to dry out a lot faster. You have a lot, so a small container is going to be more exposed, obviously, to being warmed up. It's going to be above ground, probably sitting on concrete, most likely, if you have it in a container. So you've got the heat from the concrete, heat coming off, radiant heat coming off of your house. You've got to take all those things into equation. We have a large pot here that's a pretty big low bowl, and I say we're probably watering that twice to maybe 3 times a week right now as it gets warmer, because we are already on a warming trend. I was looking at the weather. We're going to be in the 70s. We've been in the 60s and the 70s, even high 70s at the end of the week. 3 times a week would be good. They don't like to be dried out. This is in no means a drought tolerant plant. Bulbs aren't. They need a lot of water because their lifespan's a little bit shorter than your perennial things. So 2 to 3 times a week in a container. In the ground, 2 times a week is good. A nice soaking, so they're getting water down really low. One of my things I tell people all the time when it comes to watering is you want to water deeply but infrequently. So the key is getting water deep in the ground or all the way through your pot and allowing it to dry out in between watering. So never just like a little cup of water here and there. That's just never enough. It needs to go all the way down to the bottom, because you got to think those roots are really nice and deep, and you want the water to just pass the tips of those roots. So those roots keep going down and down and searching for water. So that's really important. This is true for everything. If you're watering your garden and you got irrigation going, it's going on every single day, you're doing it wrong. It's got to go at least every other day. Even that's a little much, especially in this kind of weather. So you want to go deep, but then you want to allow the crust of the soil, the top of the soil, to dry out in between waterings. That's really important. You never want to feel the top and have it soggy like a sponge. It needs to dry out in between.
Are these full sun?
Yes. So you want that 6 hours or more for sure. The more inland, a little bit of afternoon, 6 hours is great. Here, full all day long sun. Mine are getting full all day long sun. I live pretty coastal here in Southern California, so they do want a good amount of sun. The Japanese anemones, which are different, I maybe should have brought one since I kept saying the name so you can see what it looks like, but those are a perennial plant, and those want more shade. So I love planting those underneath like the dappling of my trees and things like that, because they like a little bit of filter. These guys want full sun. They don't like it to be really hot, so that's why they start out pretty early. Here we are in the very beginning of the year, and they're already flowering and doing their thing, and they're only going to get better and better. But once we hit July, they're pretty much done. So they're not an incredibly crazy long plant, but the amount of blooms you get per plant is just stunning and amazing. So 6 to 8 hours would be the best amount of sun for you.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions and
so
comments.
nobody has had them come back. Okay, so it's not just me. I've been doing this for a long time. But yeah, this is not one from bulb that I've had come back, but that's okay. I treat it like I treat my pansies. I don't expect my pansies to come back in the next year. Annual plants are just a different kind of game, but they're just amazing. It's so funny. I have people come in and I say, oh yeah, this is great. And they go, is it an annual or perennial? And I tell them annual, and I can see the disappointment. But the beautiful part about annual plants is they're just so showy. Most of our perennial stuff's great because yes, there is a presence year round, but they're not as showy. They're going to be more like your shrubs and your tiny little trees and things like that, which are fantastic and they're a staple and bones of your garden. But this is the thrilling part of your garden. This is the part where you get to plant something new and plant something seasonal and really feel that change in the garden and really be connected with what's going on outside. I think that's the beautiful thing about gardening. I think that's the thing that keeps me sane is knowing that things are changing and seeing things come and go. And I love that whole cycle of gardening. So I think it's something that everybody can really get into, and especially having something you can bring in your house. So not only can you enjoy it outside, but you can enjoy it inside. So it seems like it's even longer lasting because you get it inside and out, which is really great. So make sure you come in and check these out. This is the plant of the week and the plant of the month. So the whole month, it's a buy two, get one free, which is pretty awesome. So you can get a really nice kind of swath of color going on. I love mixing the colors. I love just the dark ones with the white ones. I love that white center. I was a little sad that I didn't have one to show you flowering wise, but they're just starting out. But that white with the black center, I mean, come on, isn't that beautiful? So pretty. I love a lot of contrast in my gardening though. That's kind of my vibe and style. But anyways, yeah, so come in and check it out. Make sure you come get them before they're gone. Those Italian poppies that we had last month were flying off the shelves. It was pretty crazy. We'd get a big bunch in, and by the time we got our next shipment in, we were dwindled down to just a couple. So make sure you come get them before they're gone, especially some of the really kind of specialty colors that you're looking for. We have these beautiful pinks. I love, love, love this dark purple color. The whites and all the different colors are just absolutely super great. So make sure you go and sign up for our newsletter. If you haven't done that yet, what are you waiting for? There's so many cool things going on here. We have things like Tomato Mania coming up, and you want to know the dates for that, right? We are doing special orders on tomatoes, so you want to also make sure you're staying tuned for that when that's going to happen, so you can make sure that you get the tomato you want. Nothing worse than coming in and being really excited about that tomato of the year and it's sold out. So you can special order that online, which is pretty great, so that you know that you're going to get the ones that you absolutely want. We have thousands and thousands of different kinds of tomatoes, so you'll know when all that great stuff's coming up. And then also make sure that you're following us on Facebook and on Instagram and our YouTube page. Our YouTube page is fantastic. There's so many videos there. You can go back year after year after year and see all kinds of beautiful videos about all different kinds of topics. You can watch us change and grow and get older. That's fun. So it's really kind of neat because you can see all kinds of really amazing things there, even from home decor and Valentine ideas and how to set tables, Christmas decorating, just about everything is there. And those videos are absolutely beautiful. And then make sure you come in and get your plants. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you came in a little bit late, add your questions down below. And then that way we can get those answered for you as well. And be safe and be well and happy gardening, everybody. Bye.